I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
That's right, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. We're back. Thank you so much for hanging with us through the break, but we're back talking 2 more episodes of the Titan Games right here on the Titan Games After Show on AfterBuzz TV. My name is Ty Matthews. Joining me, as always, my fantastic host, Elysa Acosta-Milan. Elysa, how you doing?
I'm so great. I love this season so far, and I'm so excited that we have a special guest today.
That is absolutely right. I cannot tell you guys how thrilled I am, not just from this show, but also I formerly co-hosted the American Ninja Warrior after show right here on AfterBuzz TV. So we are so thrilled to give everyone, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Jessie Graff.
Yay!
Hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We have been, like I said, we've just been floored with this season so far, so we cannot wait to talk about it with you today.
Well, I'm excited too.
Absolutely. And now we're covering, since we took last week off, we are covering the last 2 episodes. That is both the 3rd episode and the 4th and final episode of the Western region. So with that, I want to kick things off. We talk about, on the men's side, we've got Robbie Rodriguez taking on Wayne Skivington. And one of the things that I think is impossible to ignore is I feel like this is the first time we've seen blood on the show when they faced off in Lunar Impact. I mean, just absolutely insane stuff. And so with that, I wanted to ask you, Jessie, through the challenges that you faced on the show, whether on Mount Olympus or any of the other challenges, was there any sort of fear of getting hurt or getting injured along the way?
Not very much. I actually came into it pretty injured. I was the day that I got called for the Titan Games, I was at the doctor's office about to get stem cell injections in my neck, both shoulders and both elbows, because I had bulging discs, 5 partially torn ligaments in my right shoulder, 1 in my left, and tendonitis with chronic sprains. And so I was about to take a couple months off to recover when I got that call. And so there was a huge consideration, a talk with the producers to figure out what kind of physical challenges am I going to have, and are they going to put me at much greater risk? And so basically the things that aggravate all of my injuries the most are ninja obstacles. And because most of the obstacles on Titan are more lower body and pushing based and pulling in this range where I'm not hanging overhead, we decided that it was a reasonable risk. And so as a stunt person, one of my specialties is like really evaluating the situation for where there could be dangers. And luckily it looked very reasonable to me. I asked about knee pads. Like anytime there's a concern, I try to make sure we take action on it to make things safer. And they were fantastic. They give us helmets. They gave us the knee pads. So I felt pretty safe as far as not being worried about getting injured.
Right, absolutely. And it's these are the types of challenges and the types of things that seem hard enough just going into 100%. It's fascinating to hear that you were dealing with so many things kind of going into it from the onset.
Yeah, in a way, that's kind of the life of a stunt person. Things happen. And in a way, I think dealing with so many injuries over the years has made me more adaptable. It forces me to think about the most efficient way to do things, or how to do things. If your right arm isn't working, how are you going to compensate for that with the other limbs? And so because most of my limbs were working fairly well, I felt like I was pretty set for this one as far as safety goes.
And
Right, absolutely.
How much time did you have between the competitions? Like when somebody first competed and then they went to Mount Olympus, how much time was in between the 2? Was it days, hours?
So all of the preliminary rounds where you see the contestants in the different colors going against each other, those all happened in the first week before the reigning Titans, who wore the black, arrived. So they did like their first, I guess it's like you have best of 3. Whoever is in the lead after 3 goes on to face the person on Mount Olympus. And so all of those took place the first week. So they had a weekend off, and then we arrived to do Mount Olympus. And that's where things were crazy for us. So we would do our first match on Mount Olympus. If we won, we'd have a few hours rest to face the next person on Mount Olympus who was fresh. And if you win that, then you have a few hours before you face the third person on Mount Olympus. And so Joe Thomas was the only one who did that, who competed in all three. And I can't say how he does in the last one. Wait, no, that happened. That has already been on.
Yes, yes, exactly.
But yeah, so that was the really intense one. So no, the only one, so I think Hammer Down, which was the one I did in the episode yesterday. I forget if that was the same day or the next day when we did the tug of war challenge. But so those were pretty close together.
Okay.
God, that's absolutely unbelievable. And we saw over the course of these episodes, we saw such incredible runs. I mean, Noah Palicia going 4-0 on Mount Olympus. Margaux Alvarez being completely undefeated in any challenge, including Mount Olympus, is absolutely incredible to see. Now, obviously, Jessie, you have experience with Mount Midoriyama. What did you think about Mount Olympus going into it?
I mean, I was pretty intimidated by it from the first episode I saw of season 1 of Ninja Warrior. A lot of people assumed that I would be good at it because I do obstacles, and my immediate response was, I am going to be terrible at this. So when I got invited, I was like, oh gosh. But I always encourage, especially little girls, to not be afraid to take on challenges, even if they think they're going to fall on their face. And that's where you grow the most. So I was excited to give it a try. And the thing that's intimidating to me is that I've always done body weight exercises. I do some weights for injury prevention and joint stabilization. But as far as lifting heavy, like Kelly, the girl I went up against, she can squat more than double what I can. It's like the ability to lift heavy weights is something that I had never really focused on, and something that I know is a huge weakness for me. And so I had 10 weeks. Well, the first week I was recovering from the stem cell injections. So I had 8 to 9 weeks to just like, how much can you improve your strength really quickly? And I improved a lot, and I got better at a lot of things that I think I will continue in my training for the rest of my life. I feel a lot more stable in a lot of ways because of the heavy lifting I did. But you can only make up for so much in 2 months compared to someone who's been lifting for their entire life or years, you know? So that was the big change for me. That's what was scary about it. I knew that I was going to struggle with lifting any heavy weights or pulling that boulder. And so I put a ton of focus on that in my training. I did push sled all the time, pushing it and pulling it. And as much as I did, I knew that it was just going to be really heavy for me. So I got excited when we got there. I thought I improved a lot, and man, that boulder stopped me in my tracks. Oh, I was so surprised. Because like they'd let us touch some of the obstacles the previous day as we went through the rules, and so we got to sort of test it. And I think they added a plate to it. So when I first pulled it the day before, I pulled and it was super easy, and I just ran with it, and I was like, oh, this is great, I'm gonna be so solid. And then in competition I got there and pulled and just went nowhere, totally stopped. And the funny thing is, like, they cut a lot of that out. So Kelly got there just ahead of me. She pulled it like it was nothing, and I just was hanging off of it, like leaning 45 degrees, all of my weight, and just nothing was moving. And so I, like, as she's finishing, I sort of do a lap around the ball being like, is it bolted to the ground? Did I miss something? Is it still attached? I kept trying. I pulled again. I fell on my face at least 5 times. The producers asked me to stop. They were like, oh, no. You're not out of the competition. You can save your strength. Like, right. You're not out. And I was like, I don't understand. I'm pulling a boulder. And then I just went back at it. So it took me over 3 minutes after she finished to get it all the way to the end, but I did finish. So I'm really proud of that. I never gave up.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was really hoping to get a rematch with the boulder. But you know, you saw my tug of war battle. So
right. Well, and that's the thing, you had mentioned before that the type of strength that's needed for something like Ninja Warrior is so different than what you would need for Mount Olympus and even for any of the other challenges. It seems like one of the things that really gives people a lot of trouble is that log lift, because not only is it heavy, it also seems incredibly cumbersome.
Yeah, and that was a technical mistake on my part. I knew going into this that with my disadvantages in like mass and strength, I was going to need to be perfectly technical. And I got into a rush. I saw her really close behind me. And so in my rush, I picked it up crooked. So I was adding to the friction by pushing sideways. And that's what really messed me up and drained my legs, that made me less able to perform later. Which is why I really wanted a rematch on that course so that I could try. I would take one extra beat, just one extra breath to make sure it's straight and then push, and I would have been much better off.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that Elysa and I have talked about over the season is that one of the main differences between this and Ninja Warrior is that mental element of being able to see your opponent right there and seeing, if they're way ahead, if they're struggling on something. Does that kind of come into play, that sort of mental aspect of being able to see your opponent just feet away from you?
Yeah, and I honestly didn't think it would, because I knew I was going to push my absolute hardest. But I think it uh, it hurt me a little in this case, because if I hadn't seen how close she was to me, I would have been more careful and done it more correctly. And I let it get to me and rushed, and that's where I made a mistake. I think there's a lot of places on Team Ninja Warrior or Ninja versus Ninja, having someone next to you can be really exciting, because there are a lot of opportunities to make big moves that will save time, but they're huge risks. So if you're ahead, you would never want to take those risks. But if you're behind, then it's like it's do or die. So you go for crazy moves. And so it encourages that kind of thing. And I like that. But in this situation, there weren't really crazy moves to make. It was just like, go as hard and as fast as you can. And and then try to pull a boulder and collapse on your face 5 times.
Right. That boulder, really, we have seen a lot of people take some falls on that. We saw, oh my God, poor Noah, like, hit his head on the tomb at the very end of pulling that boulder. Just, oh my God, we have seen some tumbles this season for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it happens when you're giving 110%, going as hard as you can. It's easy to slip on something.
Right, exactly. And I feel
crush.
like that's another one of the things that this has in common with Ninja Warrior, is that not only does each obstacle present its own challenges on its own, but like you're compounding that fatigue as you go on, like you might be able to pull that boulder completely cold, but coming at the end of that course, it's got to be that much harder.
Yeah, I could barely walk right by the time I got to the boulder, mostly from the log, but
right.
But yeah, when I was stuck trying to pull it for so long, after a minute of like getting to shake out my legs, when I tried to pull it again, it became so much easier, and that's why I was able to finish. But man, those Jello legs.
That's a killer for sure. Now on in that first episode, I thought for sure, Elysa, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I thought for sure that Wayne was going to take Mount Olympus. It seemed like he kept getting these leads, but Noah just barely pulled it out. What did you think of that?
No, it's amazing.
It's always great to see the competition, especially because Noah, he really, I mean, everybody really wants it. I'm sure they do. And considering like on Mount Olympus, Noah had done so well. And Jessie, I had talked to Tyler about this before. I feel like some people, when they are on Mount Olympus and they've gone through it a couple times, it gives them an advantage because they know what to do on Mount Olympus. So Noah, he had done it a couple times by this point. So I felt that he definitely had the upper hand, but Wayne, did really good, but Noah came out on top. So.
Well, so the thing that I think balances that out is that in that third round, you have to remember that, yes, Noah has now had 2 previous attempts at Mount Olympus. he's also doing it for his third time in the day. And seeing anyone who finishes that course, and like, you should have seen me. I was dead for an hour. I was like, at least. And everyone who I saw come back from there was like that. I think Noah, being an extreme endurance athlete, was probably better at recovering from it, but that's just an asset that he has that contributed to him doing so well. Yes, there's definitely a technical advantage to doing it a second time, but there's a huge disadvantage to being exhausted after having done it once or twice.
That's crazy. I didn't know that they had to do it a couple of times a day. I mean, props to him for doing it 3 times in one day and still finishing on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's already impressive enough. Knowing that is absolutely insane. Now another thing that really jumped out to me over these last couple of episodes is people's different kind of backgrounds and expertise coming into play. We saw Lindsay Ham put on incredible performances in both episodes, but specifically in last week's episode on chain link, that climbing expertise really seemed to kind of come into play. Jessie, I wanted to ask about, obstacles that require grip strength, because obviously that's something from Ninja Warrior that you have a lot of experience with. Did things like that really kind of work to your advantage, having that grip strength, that climbing background?
For Lindsay, I think in that case, yes, it did. My feeling was that, at least in the challenges I did, it didn't feel like there was enough of an advantage, or like, climbing that pipe is a really short thing. So I didn't think it would be that much of an advantage, but it definitely allowed me to pick up speed. I think there was the other one, I forget what it's called, where you have to swing and punch the barrels through the wall.
Oh, kick out. Yeah.
Kick out. Yeah. So hanging on there, it looked like that would have taken a ton of grip strength. I didn't do any challenges that I felt required a lot of grip strength.
Right.
It was more, I had a couple opportunities to use strategy to help me out, to make up for my lack of size and squat ability. But yeah, I think, yeah, there were definitely places grip strength would have helped, but I didn't happen to be in any of those challenges.
Right. Well, I know you had talked before about, how as a stunt woman, your specialty is finding the most efficient way through obstacles. And one of the biggest aha moments to me that I thought was genius when I saw you doing it was your strategy on resistance. That sort of because we've seen so many people gas out. And so using your body to kind of sweep these barrels, I thought, tell us a little bit about your approach and kind of coming into that challenge.
So Kelly and I actually joked about this afterwards. Am I still there? Can you see me?
Yeah, you're there.
So we joked about this afterwards because she has a lot of size and strength on me. And so we both thought she was going to drag me around on a leash. We were both 100% confident that she was going to slingshot me out of the arena. And my goal was to be the most annoying sandbag that I possibly could be and slow her down as much as possible. I honestly didn't think that I stood a chance of getting any barrels out or getting close enough to the wall to get a barrel out. And I knew that if it were just her strength against mine, she would drag me wherever she wanted to. And so my goal was to get to one barrel fast enough that I could hook onto it and use it as an anchor. So that now she wasn't just pulling my weight, but she was pulling my weight plus a 75-pound barrel, which made up for our weight difference immediately.
Interesting.
So,
I see.
So once I got there and I had that barrel in my armpit, now I'm an anchor and I can stay in this plank position, preventing her from getting close to the wall. And so I figured if I could keep tension, keep her from getting there, and slowly inch my way to the left, dragging as many barrels with me as possible, I could just slow her down and hopefully prevent her from getting a barrel.
Well, you definitely held your own, because it was they were counting down with the clock, and she barely got the barrel over in time. And if she hadn't, you would have had to have gone on to sudden death.
And that's where I made a mistake. So here's my mistake. Behind my barricade of barrels, I wasn't able to see her, and I didn't realize that she hadn't gotten any barrels out. I heard 2 barrels hit the ground, and each time I thought she had actually successfully thrown them out. So I thought she already had 2. So when they started counting down, I was like, it's now or never. You have to do whatever it takes to throw a barrel. And so as soon as I got out of my plank position and raised my weight a little bit, she was able to yank me off my feet, which is why I hadn't stood up the whole time. Now, she was exhausting herself running against me the whole time, trying to yank me off my feet. So if I had hung out in my little camp, I actually found a crack in the cement where I sunk my fingers in and would have been able to hang out very comfortably for quite a few minutes with no problem. And so as she was trying different techniques to yank me out of my position, every time she put slack, I was able to pull myself a little bit closer. So if I'd known that she had no barrels, I would have waited there and just kept pulling, inching closer. I've thought about this so much. I was like, maybe I could have lifted one barrel on top of the other and shoved it closer and toppled it over.
Sure.
But the thing is, I could have gone into sudden death and waited her out. But I didn't know. And if I had just looked back, it might have been different.
Right. Because that's such a good point. You know, when they throw the barrels, it still makes that sound, even if it doesn't make it over. So you get this idea in your head, like, okay, you're keeping track of their score.
Right. And the thing is, every time you try to throw a barrel, the action of throwing it gives you momentum the other direction. So if she tried to throw a barrel, that gives me a moment that I can lunge forward and gain another inch or 2. One more foot, it would have been enough.
And when you're competing, Jessie, do you get like in the zone? Because I know I saw your parents and you had friends that were in the audience. Can you hear like the crowd around you, or do you just kind of tune them out and just get in the zone?
I'm very much in my own zone. When I compete on Ninja Warrior, I usually designate one person who is going to give me technical advice so that I can keep an ear out for just that one person. And everything else is kind of noise. And so we place each other very specifically so that like my mom and Maggie are usually like, they're there for camera. They cheer and they know to cheer for camera, while like Brian Kretsch, David Campbell, and Sean Bryan are like really close to wherever I am, and I'm listening to their voices to be like, a little to the right, hook your thumbs. So that's another mistake I made, is that I didn't make that designation in that situation. And so I did hear the crowd chanting, just get one, which I thought was for me, like, you're losing by so much, just get one so you don't embarrass yourself. When if I know, no, they just meant no one's gotten one. Just somebody get a barrel.
And
that's
pay attention. Rock being there in the arena with you, how motivating is that for you? Have you met him before this competition?
No, I hadn't met him before the competition. He's so nice. He's so cool. My favorite was when they first had us meet him to do the promo. He was supposed to read off like introductions for each one of us. And they had written out like the Jessie Graff, crazy stunt woman. And he immediately looked at it and goes, can we get a different adjective for her? And I was
Wonder Woman, stunt woman.
We were awesome. Like, because like it's so important to us as stunt people to be seen as like careful, calculated scientists of our art. Like, sure, we're not crazy daredevils. We're not trying to take ridiculous risks and get hurt. We're responsible for our safety and the actor's safety. And so, you know, as an actor, he knows that, and it meant so much to me that he pointed it out and fixed it for me. But he was great. It was so great to get to meet him.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's so cool to hear. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like so many people nowadays when they hear like stunt woman, they have this idea of like Zoe Bell hanging off the hood of the car in Death Proof or something like that. Mm-hmm. But you're exactly right. You know, it takes so much precision and it's so much more than that. And I feel like that sort of strategy and that sort of, you know, methodical thinking comes into play in so many of these challenges. I want to talk a little bit about Hammer Down. You know, and in this week's episode, we saw Exodus Rogers come within just like a fingertip, like he had the chain in his hand and just barely slipped away. And that, you know, on the men's side, that it really seemed like such a battle. Whereas Jessie, when you played a hammer down, it seemed like you absolutely
Killed
destroyed it,
it.
just demolished it. What do you think it was? Let's start with just the first stage of it, just swinging that hammer. What do you think it was about those strokes that really kind of gave you the lead that you got?
Technique. As soon as I found out what the challenge was going to be, I got on YouTube and looked up everyone who had swung a sledgehammer horizontally from the previous season. I studied their techniques. Jackie, who was the runner-up last year, had probably the best technique. She was swinging it like a softball bat. And so using correct momentum and stepping through, so you're swinging through the pole, not hitting it. A lot of people were kind of controlling it versus using their whole bodies.
Right.
And so I went to production and I borrowed an umbrella. I taped 2 water bottles to it and set up a target with couch cushions in the green room. And I practiced and I filmed myself. So I had about an hour to do all of this.
Wow.
And I practiced lefty and righty. I didn't have a I should have put a tape mark, but I at that point, I honestly didn't know whether I was going to be better right-handed or left-hand because my right shoulder was more injured. So I practiced both. And that was the extent of my horizontal sledgehammer swinging experience. But because I did it obsessively and scientifically, when we got down there, I was able to use much more efficient swings to get through quickly.
That's so fascinating to hear that you like had set up this, like, just getting an umbrella and water bottles. That's so funny to hear.
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, climbing up that pole, once again, it seemed like it presented absolutely no challenges. What was that like, kind of making your way up towards the chain?
Well, I knew climbing that pole was going to be super easy for me. That's my comfort zone. It was just a matter of like, can you keep them from getting way ahead of you on the sledgehammer? And so when I was actually in the lead on the sledgehammer, I felt pretty safe. Everyone said it was faster to get on top of it. So I went as fast as I could. I dove on top, and on my first move, I just kept falling around and was underneath and just scrambled up anyway. And that felt just as good underneath. So
Whatever works to get you to the top and pull the ring.
yes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, I felt like, I cannot remember if Hammer Down was around in the first season, but it seems like when we first started seeing it, everyone was climbing on top, and now it seems like so many people are going the opposite and going from the bottom. And like I said, you know, on the men's side, that was just a war. Like, we just kept seeing bodies between Exodus and Wayne, just kept slipping off. And that's gotta be, so
it was definitely a little bit slippery. I don't think the guys were using their thighs well enough. You can squeeze your knees together and pointing your toes and hooking your heel around it. And then using your hands to grip the pipe is going to be too slippery. So you want to get your whole arm and forearm around it. But I think those are probably technical things that you learn and become instinctive, and that I didn't have to think about because I do so much climbing stuff, that maybe they had to sort of troubleshoot through as they were on the set.
Right, definitely. Now, another thing that they had mentioned during Hammer Down is that were you using an ambidextrous approach to the hammer swings?
Yeah, it was the wrong call. I'm a righty, so I instinctively went right-handed first and got through both of the first 2 pulls pretty quickly, and then remembered that I had practiced both sides and that my left side is stronger. So I started swinging left-handed, and I think I missed. And at that point should have been like, oh, you're definitely a righty, go back to right-handed.
Right.
But I tried a few more times that way, and I got it eventually. I forget if I switched back, but I didn't do it just to showboat. I honestly thought it might be a better technique. I was just wrong.
Now, we had talked a little bit about, you know, obviously the momentum of the crowd and you kind of like honing in on people's voices, but I wanted to also explore a little bit about, you know, it seems like acoustically it's so different from Ninja Warrior. You know, Ninja Warrior, you're on these outdoor courses, and so it's, you know, the noise obviously goes up. With this, was it difficult kind of getting used to doing this like inside an enclosed arena?
No, I actually competed indoors on Ninja Warrior last year.
Oh, okay.
I was in the first region that ever competed inside. We were in the Tacoma Dome.
Okay.
And it was great. I think it brings you a little closer to the crowd. But again, I'm kind of in my own zone anyway. It was just me and those pegs. Hammer and peg.
Right, exactly.
Now, Jessie, when you went to the resistance competition, do you feel if it wasn't you versus Kelly and it was you versus Lindsay, do you feel that it would have turned out a little bit differently?
I think it might have. I think I'm maybe a little closer in size to Lindsay, and I know she's more of a climber, so we might have more similar strengths. There might not have been as big of a difference in leg strength. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think any little tip of the scale in my favor might have made the difference, and I might have been able to get that barrel out. But
well, and
never know.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing about watching the episodes back that you saw that was the hardest thing for you?
It was probably just the fact that in the first episode I was in, they didn't include me finishing. And so a lot of people watched it and they're like, so I think there was one person who commented and was like, she's mentally weak, she gave up. And I was like, no,
oh no,
it's just edited out. You can see my key is turned. But they were so nice. The producers, they're looking for like the old footage, and they're gonna let me post the video of my battle with the boulder so that I can show, like, because I think that's so important, especially for kids to see, like the concept of never giving up even though it feels impossible, finding a different way and keeping at it.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that I've noticed is that it's got to be bittersweet. You know, we saw Wayne Skivington going in with an injured ankle into Mount Olympus against Noah Palicia in the Western Finals, and it's, you know, when your opponent has already finished and then they start cheering you on, like it's good that there's that sportsmanship and that kind of camaraderie. That's also got to be like just twisting the knife a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to, I don't know if there's a right thing to do there. Like the right thing is still to cheer the other person on, for sure.
Right, of course.
Then it is a little bit like, no, you know what? Because I was in that position. I was definitely like, I lost by a lot. And the fact that Kelly was there cheering me on, I took it positively. I appreciated it because I think she and I are friends now. Actually, we've trained together since then.
Oh, cool.
I'm helping her with agility. She's helping me with my lifting. And to me, it was always me against the course. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to go faster than her and I failed, but it was just like my rivalry on that course is still with the boulder. I want a rematch with that thing so badly. But
so
I mean,
if
to
they
do better,
give you an opportunity to come back, I'm guessing you will, right?
I totally would. Yeah. I mean, but if I wanted to do well, I have so much work to do. Like it seriously takes years of strength training to get as strong as these men and women have gotten. Mm. And I do believe that you can dramatically change your body within a year. I mean, more so in 5 years, but, and it is something that would be totally different for me. And it would take a long time. But if that were something that I wanted to dedicate myself to, I think it's important for people to know that you can make that change. And that would be a cool thing to share. Because there was another meme that was like, I think it was something about me being on Titan Games, and it was like Aladdin themed, going, a whole new body type needed for this composition. I was like, yeah, kind of, but that's not something that's set in stone. Like my body is naturally suited towards more body weight related activities, but that doesn't mean that I can't get way stronger at lifting. And it's not something that I'm as passionate about. So it's not something I've trained as hard, but it would be cool to get to show that kind of transformation and how much you can change.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because I know you said that people just assume because you're a stunt woman and you were on American Ninja Warrior that you would dominate this course. And I think a lot of people thought that about the other Titans as well that came in, like Joe Thomas and Victor Cruz, because Victor Cruz had won a Super Bowl. A lot of people were sharing on social media that they thought that they were going to kill it. And we saw Victor Cruz not move forward for the Western region. So I think you still did an absolutely phenomenal job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like, the reigning Titans coming in, we are, yes, professional athletes, but we are specialists in very specific things. So it's not necessarily suited towards Titan Games, but I thought it was great that they brought us in as a reference point, because each one of us does something specific where you can say that is a professional athlete. We've seen them do something, and it gives us a reference point to be like, oh, wow, this is our, everyday person who has like a normal job, and see how they stack up in a physical competition against someone who you already know is a high level athlete. So I think that seeing them against us really helped to highlight how amazing they are, and gave us a new experience to challenge ourselves.
Well, and it's like you said, it takes years to build the kind of strength that you need for something like this. I mean, you look at Margaux Alvarez, who, in addition to her, to her winery, is also working out 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. These are in a lot of ways everyday people, but in a lot of ways completely superhuman athletes.
Yeah. I mean, I believe a large percentage of the contestants are actually world ranked CrossFitters. So
wow,
they're kind of professional athletes as well. But they're also, like, my job is stunts and Ninja Warrior, sort of. And like, they're pro football players. Like, these people are able to hold normal person jobs also and still do these things. So it kind of makes it more accessible to people who have everyday jobs to be like, oh, wow, no, I can do amazing things too. Like, I'm not a professional football player, but I can do my day job and go to the gym and become an amazing athlete.
And we saw for the Western
definitely.
Region Championships, it was Margaux and go ahead.
Margaux and Kelly, right?
Well, for the Western region, to the actual championship, it was Margaux for the girls, and then for the guys, it was Noah. Are we going to see
Noah,
you and the other you and the other competitors? Are we going to see you more in the show, not actually competing, but maybe being in the audience for the finals?
No, I actually didn't get to watch anything that I wasn't in.
Okay.
Yeah, they kept us. We didn't get to see anything.
But will you be back later in the season when they're actually, like, all the regions are competing against each other?
No.
They didn't come back.
No, they sent me home. So it'll be a surprise to me too. I actually don't know who wins.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, these were 2 absolutely incredible episodes. I mean, like I said, seeing Noah go 4-0 on Mount Olympus, seeing Margaux be completely undefeated, is just incredible. But Jessie, I wanted to ask, so what's next for you after now that this is all put to bed?
Trying to do a little bit more acting, coming up with some fun pitches for possibly a TV show. I'm trying to pitch one where my mom and I would do like fit family makeovers, where we would like go to spend some time with a family that is having trouble building healthy habits. And I would teach the kids and my mom would teach the parents ways to incorporate fun exercise into your daily lives and how to eat healthy, and teach them and have them transition their lives in a fun way. And then, of course, Ninja Warrior is shooting in like a week. So,
oh, wow.
So I'm in like my last week of training, kind of tapering off, hoping I've gained enough strength back, because it has been, after Titan Games, I did go back and get the rest of those stem cell injections. So I went back to square one, lost all of my strength, and have been rebuilding it for the past 4 months.
Oh my God.
So it's been a roller coaster of strength and atrophy. So hopefully I'll be strong enough.
Well, I think the Fit Family TV show, if you can make that happen, that would be amazing, because on your Instagram, you have shown pictures and videos of how you've helped your mom get pull-ups. You incorporate like your pig in there and him doing exercises and stuff like that. So I think that would be such a great TV show to watch.
Yes. All right, let's make it happen.
Yes. And then you can come back on AfterBuzz TV and we can talk about the new show.
Right, exactly. Has it been difficult keeping up with training and stuff like that with kind of the lockdown and everything going on?
No, I was very lucky that I got my injections done literally the day before the lockdown. And so
wow.
I was actually going to have to take those 2 months off from work anyway. And so it's not I would have liked to see my physical therapist more often.
Mhm.
But I was able to get my exercises and do them at home and rebuild slowly. And I have a lot of good strength training stuff in my living room. So rebuilding, it was the perfect time for me for all of that to happen. And now that some of the rules are lifting, it's nice to be able to get out and do like bigger workouts outside. And I'm still not really going back into the gyms with lots of people yet. I'm trying to play it safer, keep distance. But yeah, it's in a way, it's nice to have the time off to really be able to focus on training and stabilization and rehabbing. But I'm excited to get back out there soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can't wait to see what's next. Where can our audience find you on social media?
On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it's Jessie Graff Power. So it's spelled JessieGraffPWR.
Perfect. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for joining us. This was an absolute blast talking about this with you.
Yay. Well, thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Definitely, you as well. Elysa, thank you so much for being the amazing co-host that you always are over the course of this season. Of course, where can people find you?
They can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Elysa_Acosta.
Absolutely. And guys, as always, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at Ty Matthews PMA. We'll be right back here, same time, same channel, same day next week, talking about episode 7 of season 2 of the Titan Games. But until then, peace.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.